suppose the proper thing to do would be to shed some light into history. For those unaware of what we call werewolves, there have been many myths scattered throughout history. Alas, I have come to tell you the truth. I am Lycaon Vasilius, firstborn Lycaon of Arcadia. In hindsight, my story started grim. That said, my vengeance comes from something eroded, erased from history. Let us start at the beginning, shall we? Once upon several millennia ago, I was the king of Arcadia. I was just, a quite hospitable leader of thousands. I will admit I let much go to my head in terms of power, money, nobility, and political lean. In the times when the gods openly traversed the earth, I felt I was above man. I felt invincible, untouchable. I didn't know how wrong I was. One night, a deity roamed the pathways of Arcadia. It was quickly brought to my attention, though the identity of the stranger who crept my streets was shrouded in illusion. The deception riled my paranoia of a coup. I paced back and forth in my quarters. Could Zeus really be testing my hospitality? During those days, I did what I could to please the king of the gods. I had created a festival in his honor. How will we know if it is Zeus, my lord? Asked Tenevere, my advisor. I have an idea. If Zeus is all-knowing, as they say, then I shouldn't be able to trick him. What are you going to do? He asked, his eyes wide open. I smirked wickedly. Prepare a feast. We'll invite our new guest. Yes, my lord. He returned to the bar. Add one of the slaves to the menu, I added. Tenevere halted. He slowly turned and looked over his shoulder. Pardon, my lord? Take one of the slave corpses, have his entrails mixed in with the feast. If Zeus is as they say, he will not be fooled. Several hours had passed, building my anxieties. I waited for the master plan to fulfill. The feast had begun, albeit the stranger did not show. For a moment I thought I had overestimated the man, or perhaps scared him off with my invitation. I sat quietly, ignoring the loud buzzing of peasants mingling with nobility. The large door cracked open, much to no disarray of the drunken crowd. Instinctively I stood. My heart raced. I quickly glanced at Tenevere, and I nodded, snapping my finger at my side. He looked at me, then across the hall at the stranger. I gritted my teeth, already beyond frustration. The feast, Tenevere. Oh. Tenevere snapped into focus. Apologies, my lord. He darted toward the corridor that led to the cook's cabin. I turned back, startled by the stranger. He was already upon the elongated banquet table. Greetings. I see you received my invitation quite well. The stranger bowed. I did, your excellence. Thank you for your hospitality. Hurry up, you damn fools, shouted Tenevere as he burst back into the hall. He stopped abruptly, his eyes widened. I quirked an eyebrow at him, then slowly turned to the stranger. It appears you are just in time for the main course. The man smirked. Good. I had hoped I wasn't late. Alas, I must inquire, why did you invite me? I'm nobody. I couldn't help but smirk back, though for a different reason. Nonsense. You are not from Arcadia, no? I'm not. So you are a guest in my city, I said. I glanced over my shoulder as Tenevere approached with a plate of minced meat and various vegetables. Splendid, I said as I grasped the platter. This is for you. You're welcome to sit anywhere you'd like at the denizens' table. Thank you, said the stranger as he smiled. He looked down at the plate. His smile instantly faded into a snarl as he dropped the plate. The clatter of clay against marble had no effect on the loud gasps. Glaring at me from under his brow, he hissed, What's this? I looked down at the meat. My heart started racing. You reject my offering? I glared at the man as if he were a beggar, though I knew he wasn't. With a near-blinding flash of lightning, the stained glass ceiling shattered above. The voices in the hall silently fell. I shielded my eyes with my arm. I felt a rush of heat before me. As I looked up, I will admit I was startled by the sight of the king before me. the king of the gods. Instinctively, I bowed my head. My lord Zeus, you would dare attempt to deceive me with the filth of soiled food? His voice boomed in the large hall with reverberations of thunder. The marble floor cracked beneath his feet. I needed to be sure if you were a beggar or a deity, my lord, I begged, like a weak coward. Even now I have to laugh at the lack of intestinal fortitude. You do not speak to me. With every word of the Lord of the Sky breathed, the room shook. Several more windows shattered. I glanced up. His eyes were glowing bright white entirely. My lord, my words were cut short by a hot pain in my chest, simultaneously as another flash of white lightning exploded from Zeus's fingertips. I was knocked backwards 15 feet, slamming against a marble column. For the treachery you have aimed to deceive me with, a crime of unspeakable magnitude, you will not endure punishment like any other. You and your offspring will serve your sentences as animals, as you have already demonstrated that is what you are. He brought his mighty hand up, thrusting it towards me. My lord, I begged. I looked over at my sons. The terror in their eyes was justified. At that moment, I realized the extreme level of my mistake. Sharp pain stabbed at my hand. I grasped it with my other hand, shocked to see my fingertips involuntarily snapping and growing. Hair began to break through the flesh of my skin. My nails discolored, almost blackening as they grew to sharp points. The pain was unbearable, sickening. I blacked out. The next morning I woke feeling different. The sunlight poured in from the shattered ceiling. As I rose to my feet, I noticed that I was stripped of my clothes. My hands and arms were stained red. What the hell? I asked myself quietly. I looked around. Scattered across the hall were hundreds of corpses, shredded to pieces. The memory flooded into my mind, my stomach twisted into knots. Several of my sons were in the fray of the deceased. What have I done?